That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Air, the fifth film directed by Ben Affleck, which Amazon Studios is releasing April 5th, 2023.
Do I know a Ben Affleck directed film?
I guess you don't, but he has slowly amassed quite a filmography. I remember enjoying Gone Baby Gone back in 2007, his debut, which scored Amy Ryan an Oscar nomination starring his brother. I didn't much care for The Town, the bank robbery film from 2010 with Jeremy Renner. And of course, Argo won Best Picture in 2012, although notably Mr. Affleck was not nominated for Best Director. But I guess he came out on top. And then Live by Night in 2016, which also had some things I liked, kind of the period neo-noir, but I didn't think quite worked. But here we are.
Do you like Air?
I did like Air, Courting a Legend, which I have seen twice now, and I think it is very softer on the edges, but hits all its marks just right and has a couple great supporting performances, particularly that of Viola Davis, and so I think that what it mainly is a portrait of black excellence, but as seen through a white prism or lens.
The story's pretty basic. It's about the Nike employee who orchestrated the deal with Michael Jordan, specifically through his mother, to create what we now know as Air Jordans. So the film's set in 1984, and at that time, Adidas and Converse were like the big dogs in athletic shoes, and Nike had a much smaller share of the market. So Matt Damon specifically was tasked with using quite a small budget to secure additional athletes with endorsements to sell shoes. But he comes across Michael Jordan and feels very strongly about him, which is a pretty major part of the story, is how he really believed in this guy. He gets that deal. The end. We all know, I mean, the rest is history. We know that it set a precedent for athletes securing endorsements where they get a percentage of the profits. So, and we know Michael Jordan's a billionaire and still makes hundreds of millions of dollars annually from the shoe. So like you said, it's sort of about black excellence.
Right, but again, as orchestrated by, the white gatekeepers that were kind of behind the scenes, the wheelings and dealings of making how these kind of deals were coming about. But Matt Damon as Sonny Vaccaro, who, and again, they mentioned in the end credits, who in 2014 was involved in testifying in a lawsuit about college players being awarded or being monetarily compensated for wearing the regalia of the colleges they played for, etc. So, changing the face of, rights within the sports community.
Viola Davis is a highlight. Do you want to talk about...
She appears in a handful of scenes, but it's really two scenes of dialogue where it's, Viola brings that sense of gravitas towards... It's not a basic script by any means, but is kind of giving you that extra bit which just enhances the final product. I mean, the scene where... Because Matt Damon circumvents... It's made clear that Michael Jordan has no interest in Nike, we're told, from everywhere. And Sonny Vaccaro goes and takes a meeting with George Raveling, played by Marlon Wayans, who's this notable Olympic coach who has his own side story about having an authentic copy of MLK's I Have a Dream speech. As circumventing the normal channel, because Chris Messina, as the agent, won't... Because he has to... finagle this deal from happening, because the CEO, played by Ben Affleck, doesn't want to allow this. It just doesn't make any sense that they would do this. Like, it's a losing battle. So he goes to North Carolina, Sonny Vaccaro, and visits the Jordans. And that is probably the best scene of the film, is him convincing Viola, that Deloris, that he sees the same thing that she does in her son, and that he is something significant, something special, something different, and that this is the shoe company that will give them what he needs. And then we get a little smattering of, what Adidas looks like. So they fly to Germany, and Jay Moore has basically a cameo with the notable German actress Barbara Sukowa, and how the Adidas, the head of that company just died, so his children are kind of fighting over for control. And Converse, which had Magic Johnson and Larry Bird signed, and how they were kind of corralling a stable of all the most notable players. So those are all interesting tidbits. I think that if maybe are more interesting to you if you're into this particular world. But to me, it's Viola, and then Matt Damon he's fine in it to me, but it comes down to one final impassioned speech he gets to make when the Nike meeting is granted, and it's being bungled. It's not going well. Chris Tucker shows up late, and the script makes a point to have Mr. Jordan point out, like, you're the only other brother in the room and you showed up late, which that's one of the moments I remember best. I've seen it twice, that moment that they take the time to censure him, which I thought was interesting. But it's Damon's impassioned speech there about how it's not the shoe that's special, what's made special is by the person who wears it, basically. And then tying in together all these other things from his coworkers, like Jason Bateman, who's kind of the head of the marketing department at Nike, whose ass is on the line, and kind of calls Sonny Vaccaro out for it, saying, you didn't really think what would happen if you don't make this deal because of with the channels you went through to make it happen. We could all lose our jobs, and I have this kid that I gotta support, etc. But other than that, this feels very much in a cycle of other recent films like Tetris or Blackberry, which is about to come out soon, about this specific deal, specific technology, a specific moment that kind of united the world, the public consciousness, the zeitgeist, and how it's interesting how we want to get back to that because nothing feels like that anymore.
What about the cinematography?
It was shot by Robert Richardson, who, of course, is an excellent cinematographer. Has shot several very notable Tarantino films, including Kill Bill, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or in Scorsese's The Aviator. So I think it looks great. It opens with a fun montage of 1984 visual products. The Where's the Beef commercial. You, of course, get a snippet of Ghostbusters. The snip that confounded me is that movie Rhinestone. They showed Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone with the Bob Clark movie. You have to see Rhinestone if you've never seen it, because I think it's terrible but fun. I thought that was a flop. I didn't know. It's just funny what they were choosing to highlight, I think. But I think Ben Affleck is a pretty decent director. And having sat through this twice now, if you're a Viola Davis fan, I think this is must see. Chris Tucker, I think, is well cast in his role. The Marlon Wayans George Raveling thing, I feel like that probably I feel like they're inflating that more than it is. And again, I just wish that it had made a greater point than to move beyond the wheels of capitalism that are going beyond this, to show that, if we really look at everybody and really see that everybody kind of has something to offer and something special that can be fostered. Like Viola's second major scene is her saying that she's just really a healthy reflection of how her son feels about himself. And if everybody felt that way, if everybody was acknowledging each other that way, I don't know. I feel like there are more Michael Jordans out there. There are more Albert Einsteins. I don't know. That's just how it made me feel. But
what would you give this movie?
I would give it... and we didn't even talk about Matthew Maher, who you like so much in Funny Pages, and I believe does I keep forgetting to verify that, does the voice of Mr. Burns. He is the one that's charged with designing the actual Air Jordan shoe, and was also the one we learned in the end credits that did the silhouette of Jordan jumping that would become an emblem. And we're told died at the age of 78, a month before this film went into production. But I thought that was kind of a very loving role as well. But I would give it 3 out of 5.
Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.